The government is now forcing a family to destroy their front yard garden. So Tom Carroll and Hermine Ricketts recently had a run-in with the law and were threatened with daily fines.
Go food. Go food. ASC got produced. ASC about to go cool. We gon' go food.
Ever since the agrochemical tomato called Flavor Saver was deemed fit for human consumption in 1994, there has been a surge of genetically modified foods onto our supermarket shelves. And unlike Europe, there is no mandate in the US for food companies to label products that contain what are known as genetically modified organisms. Rice, corn, peas, soy, potatoes, squash, zucchini, salmon and milk. All of these foods sit innocently on our grocery shelves next to their organic counterparts. They look the same, smell the same, and even taste the same. But 60% of food that we eat every day has a potentially dangerous secret lurking in its DNA. Growth defects, infertility, disease, and allergies have all been linked to the creation and consumption of genetically engineered food. But somehow, these issues have been swept aside. Questions we should be asking, like where does my food come from and how safe is it, have been buried in the booming new GM food industry.
Now we're going to show you some water. This is tap water, and we're going to kind of like put this on a trial tonight, and we're going to prove that this water is absolutely filthy and unable to do the job that water was intended to do. This is distilled water. We're going to prove that it's pure water. It's absolutely pure, and it's the water we should put in our body, and we'll be able to see the difference between these two waters real quick. One question I have here, does water conduct electricity? You know, if it's tap water, it's absolutely filthy, we know it does. If I touch these two wires together, that light goes on. That's an open circuit. If he's an electrician, he'd call it a normally open circuit. If I put it in distilled water, it does exactly what it's supposed to do, and that's nothing because those two wires aren't touching. That's an open circuit. It shouldn't light the light. But if I put it in tap water, it closes that gap. There's something in that water that's making that gap close. And the difference between these two waters is this is absolutely filthy water, this is pure water. Our water comes to a treatment plant where we're chemically treating our water. That's why it's called a treatment plant. Our water is exposed to many chemicals. This is a newspaper from Utah called Capital Connections, news more about people in state government. The Utah State Seal. On the back of it, it says, making sure your water's safe. It's written about Eva Neminsky. She has a PhD in environmental engineering. She's over all 50 water treatment plants in the state of Utah. She says right here, we're learning about very resistant pathogens in water. They're very difficult to kill, so you need strong disinfectants. These chemicals may ultimately cause cancer over your lifetime. So the question becomes, would you rather have diarrhea today or cancer tomorrow? So who wants diarrhea and who wants cancer? Pretty good choice there, huh? That's the two choices we have, drinking tap water. How many cups of water are we supposed to drink today? 8 cups. This is 8 cups boiled down. That's what you're drinking into your body every single day. 8 cups of water. That's 8 cups. That's 1 day. This is 30 days. This is 365 days. And this is 10 years. How old are you?
You're 45.
45. You've run 4.5 goes through your body. Okay? You divide that out, every one of you. That's what your body has to deal with drinking tap water. That's why when we put the light in tap water, it conducts electricity. There's 80,000 chemicals in our water. In 1903, we had 3 people and 100 dying with cancer. In that 100 years till now, we've developed 80,000 commercially produced chemicals. And right now, 1 in 4 people die with cancer. And 1 in 3 people get cancer. And the cancer rate's still rising. And when you think about chemicals in our life, we wash our hair with chemicals, we brush our teeth with chemicals, we wash our clothes with chemicals, we have chemicals on our food, We're a chemical society. The only thing that takes that out of our body is the water we drink. Right here in the laboratory, let's take distilled water through the same journey the tap water's been on and make the light go on it. We'll have to add a lot of things to it. First thing we'll add to it is bacterium, virus, and parasites. I'll wash my hands in it. 5 parts per million will make this light go on, and we'll see just how dirty my hands are. Pretty clean hands, huh? The tap water is still hundreds of times filthier than the distilled water. But you know the real funny thing about it is, though, you won't drink this water now, will you?
No.
Why not?
Because it has urine.
Yeah, but it's still hundreds of times cleaner than tap water. Did you see what your eyes just did to your brain now? You saw something in your water. What do you really want in your water? Nothing. Me too. When I saw this the first time, that's what I decided. I didn't want anything in my water. I wanted clean water. But we can take it a little bit further and make the light go on. This is some of the inorganic minerals we get out of our distiller. We'll put some of that in there. We'll put some chemical from farms and factories in there. And we'll stir that around. So that's starting to look like now. Mountain Dew, right? That's what you're just thinking? Now we'll take it to the water treatment plant where we'll add a little bit of technology to it. And we'll stir that around and we'll aerate it a little bit, just like even Minsky's talking about there. Add a little technology to the water. Right amount of chemicals we can make that awful looking water look just like tap water. Isn't that cool? Now let's see if we made it tap water. Yep. Now, according to even Minsky, that's safe water to drink. You won't want to drink it now? Why not? It's safe. What's the definition of safe water? Won't cause diarrhea today. Let's see what we've done here with the TDS meter. This TDS stands for total dissolved solids. That means anything that's totally dissolved in the water will show up with a TDS meter. Now Ron, I want you to read this for me and tell me what parts per million that says. 0. 0, 0, 0 parts per million. Now tap water, right from Ogden City here, let's see what that's saying.
296, 308 now.
308. 308 parts per million. Now this water that Teresa wouldn't drink, let's see what that was. After I threw all that filth in there.
56,
54. It's still, what, 6 times cleaner than tap water. Can you imagine how much filth is in tap water? If you could see where that tap water's been, all the carcasses of the animals, the dead insects, the inorganic minerals, the chemicals that's in this water, if you could see what was in that water that's making 296 parts per million, you'd never drink it. You'd never ever drink it. And you shouldn't.
Now, doctors will tell you not to drink distilled water. They will tell you that it leaches minerals out of the body, leaving you with the impression that all the calcium will be sucked out of your bones and you're liable to snap like a twig in the lightest of breezes. But what they conveniently forget to tell you is that there are 2 types of minerals, organic and inorganic. You are made up of organic, living minerals. But the minerals in tap water, bottled water, mineral water and spring water are inorganic minerals, essentially particles of rock and dirt that have been picked up along the way. This picture gives you an idea of the difference between organic and inorganic minerals. One is organic iron and the other is rust. The body cannot metabolize inorganic minerals, so they are deposited in the organs and tissues. When it collects in and around the joints, it's called arthritis. In our eyes, it's cataracts and glaucoma. In our arteries, that's heart disease, strokes and arteriosclerosis. In our kidneys, kidney stones. In our gallbladder, gallstones, and so on and so on. Distilled water dissolves and washes away inorganic minerals, but it doesn't touch the organic forms. We know this intuitively. We use water to wash our clothes. The inorganic minerals, rock and dirt, comes out of our clothes and stays in the water, but it doesn't touch organic matter like blood stains, sweat stains and grass stains. But if you were to put dirty water into your washing machine, then the water already contains a large amount of dissolved matter, so it's no longer able to dissolve anymore, and so your clothes end up dirtier than they were before they went in. We contaminate our water enough as it is. We make it bitter, acid, sweet, and add flavour and chemicals and artificial colours in coffees, teas and soft drinks. But fundamentally, our perception of water has been manipulated. What about a nice glass of milk then? Well, apart from drinking a cow's bodily fluids that are designed for a baby cow, milk also contains pharmaceuticals, antibiotics, and often pus from mastitis infections. Milk also stimulates the body into producing mucus. Adults don't require milk, and humans don't require anything squirted out of a cow.
When you think about it, the purpose of cow's milk, I did most of my growing up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin. The purpose of cow's milk is to turn a 65-pound calf into a 400-pound cow as rapidly as possible. Cow's milk is baby calf growth fluid. That's what this stuff is. Everything in that white liquid, the hormones, the lipids, the proteins, the sodium, the growth factors, the IGF, every one of those is meant to blow that calf up to a great big cow, or it wouldn't be there. And whether you pour it on your cereal as a liquid, whether you clot it into yogurt, whether you eat it into cheese, whether you freeze it into ice cream, it's baby calf growth fluid. And women eat it, and it stimulates their tissues, and it gives women breast lumps. It makes the uterus get big, and they get fibroids, and they bleed, and they get hysterectomies, and they need mammograms, and gives guys man boobs. This is, cow's milk is the lactation secretions of a large bovine mammal who just had a baby. It's for baby calves. You know, I tell my patients, go look in the mirror. Do you have big ears? Do you have a tail? Are you a baby calf? If you're not, don't be eating baby calf growth fluid in any level. There's nothing in it people need.
Why not have a Coke instead? Well, immediately after drinking a Coca-Cola, the massive amount of phosphoric acid prevents the immediate vomiting up of the 10 teaspoons of sugar it contains. 20 minutes later, your blood sugar spikes, and the liver creates fat to deal with the sugar. 40 minutes later, the caffeine causes pupil dilation, high blood pressure, and the liver dumps more sugar into the bloodstream. After 45 minutes, the body creates a dopamine high, just like heroin. After an hour, the high level of phosphoric acid causes the body to draw in calcium, sodium, magnesium, zinc, electrolytes, and water to combat the acidity. The caffeine causes it all to be urinated out. So after an hour or so, the sugar crash hits, leaving you weak, irritable, dehydrated, and lacking in minerals.
Chicken factory farms are notoriously inaccessible to anyone outside of the industry, despite chicken being America's most popular meat.
So this is the first time that I have been invited by a contract farmer that is working for one of the biggest integrators in the country.
I'm Craig Watts. I'm a contract poultry producer with Purdue Farms.
Why were you open to letting me visit?
I'm open to anything because this stuff is not as advertised. There's a lot of flaws in the system. The consumers being hoodwinked, the farmers being jerked around.
Chicken from this Purdue farm is USDA process verified. The USDA calls this humanely raised, and consumers are paying for it.
Today, the consumer is much more interested in knowing how the chickens are raised, what they've been eating, before it gets to their table. and it's about trust and trusting the company. Doing the right thing is things like treating your chickens humanely.
First 3 or 4 days, you're going to have some inflated mortality. It's just how bad is it going to get? That's the $64,000 question. How bad is it going to get?
For each new flock, death is highest in the first and last week of the bird's life.
I can't speak for a chicken. All I can say is what I observe, and no, they're not happy. And they're definitely not healthy. When you get to that point right there, yeah, you're suffering. And it's just the acceptable losses. If they're not, kind of up and down and drinking and eating, they're not loving life, that's for sure.
Over the course of 6 weeks, in a house of 30,000 chickens, it's considered normal for more than 1,000 birds to die in every flock due to illness, genetic problems, or other issues, including injuries. Craig has no control over the health or genetics of the chicks that are delivered to him by Purdue. Bound by contract, Craig is not even allowed to give them sunshine or fresh air. Just 37 days later, they are a sea of panting birds. Panting indicates birds are overheated. These birds find it too painful to bear the weight of their unnaturally large breasts on their legs and spend the majority of their time squatting. Their heart and lungs are also physiologically taxed, overburdened by servicing their disproportionately large chests. There is nothing natural or humane about this scene. As a result of growing so big so quickly, these baby birds, only weeks old, spend much of their time sitting on the litter. Many suffer from lameness, limping, and other leg problems. The litter contains the feces of tens of thousands of birds, which they sit on nearly continuously toward the end of their lives. Litter is not changed between flocks, and sometimes not for years. Constant contact to the litter makes the underneath of the birds raw with little to no feathers.
If you get that natural sunlight, the bird's more active. They don't want that. They want him sitting down, getting up, taking a drink, a bite to eat, and sitting back down. He gets fat then.
They do not allow you to have this open anymore.
No.
That's in your contract. You have to keep them enclosed.
What is GM food? Well, genetically modified food is crops, plants and animals whose DNA has been altered for agricultural and nutritional reasons. It began in 1946, when two scientists called Joshua Lederberg and Edward L. Tatum conducted an experiment and discovered that DNA could be transferred from one species to another through a process called bacterial conjugation. This discovery has led to the development of special rice that can prevent blindness, herbicide-resistant crops, disease-resistant vegetables, and livestock growth hormones, which all improve farming efficiency. Today, the GM food industry makes $85 billion in the US market alone. Food companies and the media argue that the GMO revolution is the answer to our modern agricultural problems. But in 1998, when the GM industry was still in its infancy, Dr. Arpad Pushtai from the Rowett Research Institute in Aberdeen uncovered a shocking truth about species manipulation while he was conducting a GMO experiment on rats. Pushtai found that when his rats ate genetically modified potatoes, they developed cancerous cells in their intestinal tracts and brains. When his research went public, Pushtai was bombarded with criticism from the food industry and academics who said that his experiment was flawed. His research was effectively quashed by the big GMO players. His career was publicly ruined, and GMO was left to blossom into the $16 billion seed industry that it is today. One of the major differences between organic and GM crops is the way that they grow. Genetically modified plants have to be replanted every year, but normal seeds can be reused over and over again. If GMO seeds replace these natural seeds, then the Earth's ecosystem could be changed forever. But when huge food corporations like Kraft, Nestle and Hershey refuse to use GM organisms in their products for the European food market, what does it tell us about the safety of these so-called frankenfoods? After all, to get the results we want, we have to tinker with DNA, which is the blueprint for all living things. DNA is a complex molecule that lives inside the nucleus of a cell. When GM food is produced, biochemists have to artificially force the DNA from one species into another. This involves scrambling a food organism's blueprint, which changes its behavior and characteristics. If human error could be totally eliminated from DNA manipulation, then GM foods could very well be the technological miracle that we are after. By creating herbicide and pesticide-resistant crops, we might be able to provide an adequate food supply for a growing world population and get closer to beating starvation and malnutrition. But disrupting DNA is a tricky business, and skeptics don't think these code-scrambling scientists have a proper understanding of what is really happening in our DNA.
Say, and I think we have something that we'll end up showing on the screen here, regarding in 1979, I think it was, you were charged in New York City with practicing medicine without a license. You were ultimately charged, indicted, and taken before the New York Supreme Court. And I would advise my viewers who might be questioning your authenticity that you won that case. Now, so the charge was practicing medicine without a license and claiming that you had a remedy to cure AIDS, cancer, and diabetes. So the question is, how did you win that case against what some people say are the toughest prosecutors in the land?
Well, it was 1987.
87, not 79, 87.
The 10th of February.
Okay.
My mother knew they were coming. When I told my mama that I had cured my 13 AIDS patient, she said, "They gonna get you. They gonna get you." So my mother said, "They're gonna get you." I said, "But Mom, why they gonna get me?" Because you must remember that you live in a society that support a certain philosophy and a certain system. You being the color that you are, black, and then you're going against the grain, they're gonna get you. So when I'm in my office on February the 10th, here come the detectives. You are charged with practicing medicine without a license, selling product not approved by the FDA, and claiming to cure AIDS and other diseases. Mm-hmm. I said, yes. Well, you are making a fraudulent claim. Mm-hmm. I asked the detective, how do you know that?
Because you were advertising in newspapers.
Of course. I advertised in the Village Voice, the Amsterdam News, and the New York Post.
And you were telling people through your advertising that you can cure
AIDS, sickle cell, lupus, herpes, blindness, diabetes, paralysis, and others.
Okay, so they come knocking on the door and...
So knocked on my door and took me to jail. But the funny thing about it, I was happy. I was very, very, extremely happy. When everybody in my office was crying, I was happy because my mama told me they were coming. And I knew that I had sufficient evidence to prove my position. Not only scientifically, empirically, historically, and whatever way they would desire. So while I was in jail, I'm saying, I wonder what defense they would have against me.
Yeah.
I would like to know. But I didn't blame the Attorney General, Mr. Robert Abrams, because why should he accept from me the statement that I cure AIDS and sickle cell and blindness when no one else has ever made those claims? The man had a right to arrest me, but he was making a mistake. So I'm sitting in jail, and I'm happy. When I got out of jail and when I went in front of the judge, I asked 3 questions.
And they were?
They were, Your Honor.
You defended yourself?
Of course I did.
Okay.
Your Honor, is it a fact that the Holy Bible teaches that the herbs are for the healing of the nations? She said, yes. Is it a fact that science shows that the human body is carbon-based, and to complement a carbon-based body, you must have a carbon-based substance to complement it, because the body only accepts a substance through the process of chemical affinity. Chemical affinity is important. It's an electrical transfer. Chemical affinity.
Okay.
The body could only accept what it is made of, not something new or alien to it. Last question. Your Honor, is it a fact that the father of medicine, Mr. Hippocrates, the man that established the principle of medical science today, cured every disease known to man? Did he use herbs or chemicals? She said, herbs. I said, thank you very much. I rest my case.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I understood that the state were unprepared to defend itself. They were unprepared because in the past there was 2,781 cases that came before the Supreme Court and lost.
Yeah.
I won.
Yeah.
Not only did I prove scientifically, but I had the diagnostic sheets, and I do have them today. And those diagnostic sheets didn't come from me. They came from their school, their American medical accredited school.
Did I read it correctly where there was some requirement for you to actually bring patients, a patient into court from each of those maladies, and that you brought multiple patients in court who, one, testified themselves, and that you had medical records, one showing that they were victims of the disease, and then showing that it had been cured by one doctor, and then a second doctor verifying what the first doctor had said?
Yes. We have to remember this, that whenever you make a statement that goes against the grain, you better be prepared. You better be prepared. The judge said that I had to bring one of every patient that I had cured, and there was one that said others. The other was a man that came from Italy. He was paralyzed. But I was supposed to take 9. I took 77. I'm not going to undermine myself. There's only one disease. The judge said, what is it? I said, you already know. She said, try me. It was a woman, Ann Thelman. I said, Your Honor, when someone has sinusitis, what is obstructing the nasal passage? She said, mucus. And when another has bronchitis, what is obstructing the bronchial tubes? She said, mucus. And when another has pneumonia, what's covering the cells of the lungs? She said, mucus. Dr. Victor Herbert, who is defending the state of New York, jumped up and said, what about AIDS? You and your one disease theory? I said, Your Honor, this doctor is saying that I believe in a theory. I am the last individual on earth that could believe in a theory. I do not lend myself to theories or philosophy. Either I know or I don't know.
Okay.
He's talking about theories.
Yeah. You talking about the real deal.
I'm talking about reality, not theories, not philosophy.
So please share with this.
So she said, and what about AIDS?
Yeah.
So, well, he asked about what about AIDS? He want to know where the mucus. I said, Your Honor, have you been to an AIDS ward? She said, yes. I said, what is it that the AIDS spits up every 5 minutes? She said, mucus. Where is the mucus? It's in the skin, it's in the blood, and the lymphatic system that makes up the immunological system. That is where you find the mucus. Mr. Victor Herbert, how can you disagree with truth? You see, what happened, I didn't go to school. I have never been to school. I have never attended any school, kindergarten, grade school, high school, or anything. But I had parents that kept me anchored to the African way, not to the Chinese way, not to the European way, not to the Japanese way. I am an African.
Were your patients all of color?
No, no. I have patients that are white. I have more white patients than I have black.
Okay, so this scourge that, has just run rampant, through the world, AIDS. Can you walk us through as much as you can a step-by-step process where you have a patient that has AIDS and you do XYZ or ABC, and then the patient no longer has AIDS? Can you walk us through that?
Of course. When the first patient was a brother in Boston named Michael White, and a sister, she's from D.C. Her name is, oh boy, I forgot her name right now.
Okay.
But she told me, she said, Dr. Sebi, my brother-in-law brother has AIDS in Boston. So what do you do? I said, well, I must send him the compound. The compound that I made were made to cleanse the cells. Okay. They come in the category of phosphates, carbonates, iodides, and bromides. Now we are entering the science of biochemistry. Okay. These are food and vitalizers. I remove from the man's diet lactose, uric acid, and carbonic acid, milk, starches, and meat. By removing these things from his diet and then cleansing his cells, he began to see recovery in 24 hours. But I don't care what they say.
Yeah.
What I was concerned with, not medical science, because I know that they're the one that is violating. I am not the violator. Hippocrates did not establish the school of medicine by using chemicals, because the chemicals cannot assimilate. A chemical cannot assimilate with the human body. An herb can, because they are electrical.
Okay.
Herbs are electrical, and we have yet to understand that. I was concerned with the black leadership of America, not medical science. When I had cured these people of sickle cell and lupus and herpes and blindness, I was happy. I said, now I could go to all the leaders. I could go to Minister Farrakhan. I could go to Jesse Jackson. I could go to Al Sharpton. I could go to Oprah Winfrey. But what I found out, I was mistaken. I was wrong. They are not interested in the healing of any black people.
That's an explosive claim.
That is not an explosive statement. That is a reality. There isn't a black leader in America that is interested in the health of the black race.
Do you say that because they refuse to interact with you?
They are not in the position to respond.
And the governor of Maryland has cancer, and he's been going through chemotherapy treatments, and he talked about how devastating those treatments were. So you obviously don't treat with chemo. Why is it wrong for a cancer patient to be treated with chemotherapy?
Chemotherapy is an approach that destroys cells. Chemotherapy doesn't distinguish between good cells and bad cells. It destroys cells. It's an acid approach.
What kind of approach?
Acid.
Oh, acid approach, okay.
My approach is an intracellular cleansing. What causes disease in the first place? An acid condition. Well, let us sweep it out.
The current paradigm for healing the human body is medicine and medical treatment. But it's a particular type of medical treatment called allopathic medicine. Now, this approach is concerned with treating only the symptoms of an illness and not the illness itself. Now, this approach is rather like taking your car to a garage because the engine warning light has come on, and the mechanic takes the bulb out. The warning light is the symptom, and by taking the bulb out, well, the symptom is treated, but the problem still remains. And it's only a matter of time before that problem manifests in some more catastrophic manner. The allopathic system has its basis in the theory of evolution. And since, according to this theory, the process of evolution is continuous and ongoing, well, that implies that the human body is not fully evolved, and therefore is imperfect and susceptible to disease and mechanical breakdowns. It also suggests that the only valid way to remedy these problems is to introduce poisonous pharmaceutical chemicals to the body, slice into it with very sharp knives and hack out the offending organ, or replace it with a toy version of it made out of plastic or titanium, and to recuperate in expensive hospital facilities with tightly controlled environments that are almost always toxic. I mean, when was the last time that you had Legionnaire's disease or a flesh-eating virus in your home? So, the allopathic system treats the human body as if it were a faulty machine made up of separate replaceable modules. The heart unit not working properly? Well, whip it out and fit a new or second-hand one in. Got a cough? Well, let's ignore the fact that the cough is the body's emergency attempt to purge the lungs of toxic air, and let's suppress the coughing mechanism so that you can continue to breathe it in comfort. Without exception, all allopathic treatments and procedures come with what are termed side effects that cause further symptoms, usually unrelated to the original ones. Now, these are not inadvertent secondary effects that arise out of an attempt to heal the body. Rather, they are intentional primary effects that implement a fiendish business model. The pharmaceutical corporations now produce food that cause various symptoms, for which that same corporation provides a symptom-suppressing drug. That drug causes further unrelated symptoms, which require more drugs, and before long the patient is on a whole raft of drugs, each to counteract the effects of the others, and the corporation has another lifelong customer. Not surprisingly, this is a trillion-dollar industry. Don't take it personally, it's just business. The body-centric view is very different. It considers that the human body is perfect, whole and complete. It internally manufactures everything that it could ever require, and left to its own devices, it will repair and maintain itself in the best state of physical health it can manage in the environment and circumstances it finds itself in. In fact, despite what the medical system might have led you to believe, the human body is the only thing that can heal the human body. Not drugs, not surgery, not herbs, nor pink Himalayan sea salt, or mysterious energies. It's always the human body itself that does the healing. Does it seem logical to you that a body that was designed to live anywhere on Earth should be dependent for its survival on a type of salt found on the slopes of Mount Everest, or leaves of the moringa plant that only grows in the African jungle? How does that help you if you live in Basildon and access to African flora and Himalayan mountain ranges is minimal? Body-centric health is all about not interfering with or hindering the healing process, but understanding the body and assisting it to do what it's trying to do. This approach is simple, costs nothing, and has no side effects except increased energy and vitality, general improvement in overall health, and looking and feeling younger, fitter and stronger. Because We treat the whole body as a conscious, intelligent community working together in perfect harmony, rather than a collection of faulty parts that work independent of each other. So in order to do that, we need to accept that the current interpretation of how our bodies work, while reasonable sounding, is nonetheless incorrect. We need to better understand how our bodies cleanse and heal, how it allocates and uses energy, and we also need to understand the connection between the mind and the body. The body-centric perspective is about understanding that symptoms are not the actual problem, but are warning messages from the body. We need to be able to correctly interpret them, respond appropriately, and apply changes to our minds to prevent the problem from reoccurring. So, why is it so important to change our view of how our bodies work? Nothing about the current medical system came about by accident. The allopathic method of treatment did not reach its position of preeminence because its healing methods or success rate are superior to other forms, but because it was engineered into place by massive amounts of money from the same group of people who have publicly stated time and time again that their agenda is to reduce the human population by 90%, which is a euphemistic way of saying we want to kill 6.5 billion people. In the Third World, this is being accomplished through war, famine, and disease, by creating and arming and controlling both sides of a manufactured conflict, by using its political influence and corporations to take over the growing of food, pricing it out of the range of the locals, and to ship it out of the country, and by using these countries as a testing ground for their bioweapons programs. AIDS, Ebola, and sickle cell anemia are all biological weapons manufactured in weapons labs in the United States. In the developed nations, the genocide is being accomplished using healthcare, iatrogenic deaths, that's death by doctor, vaccines, pharmacology, sterilizations, and care pathways. The Liverpool Care Pathway is the best known program in the UK, and while it sounds all nice and fluffy, what it really means is, if nobody is looking or cares about a patient in long-term care, they will trank them up on morphine and starve and dehydrate them until they die. Healthcare is a weapon that is being used to exterminate us slowly, quietly, yet relentlessly.
Every day, 290 people are killed by FDA-approved prescription drugs. And that's the conservative number published by the Journal of the American Medical Association. The source of this information? JAMA, Volume 284, Number 4, July 26, 2000, authored by Dr. Barbara Starfield, MD, of the Johns Hopkins School of Hygiene and Public Health. That study, which is 12 years old, and drug deaths have risen considerably since then, documents 106,000 deaths per year from the adverse effects of FDA-approved prescription medications. To reach this number from outbreaks of violent shootings, you'd have to see an Aurora, Colorado Batman movie massacre take place every hour of every day, 365 days a year. If a massacre of people using slugs of lead is bad, why is a massacre of people using deadly chemicals perfectly acceptable? No one in Washington talks about prescription drug deaths. There are no sobbing victims shown on the evening news. This chemical massacre happens quietly, behind closed doors. Yet to achieve this level of mass death in the world of plane crashes, for example, you'd have to see a jumbo jet airliner crashing into the ground every day of the year. But that's only the beginning of the mass death caused by modern medicine, where greed-driven doctors are routinely bribed by the drug giants, and thereby make the Joker James Holmes look like a Boy Scout in comparison. As Natural News has revealed, just one company, GlaxoSmithKline, had a bribery network of 49,000 doctors who received financial kickbacks to prescribe more GlaxoPharmaceuticals to more patients. The company admitted to bribing doctors and paid a $3 billion settlement to the federal government in 2012. According to the report Death by Medicine by Drs. Gary Knoll, Carolyn Dean, Martin Feldman, Deborah Razio, and Dorothy Smith, the medical establishment kills 783,936 people in the United States every year. Those deaths include 106,000 Americans killed from drug side effects, 115,000 Americans killed from bed sores, 98,000 Americans killed from medical error, 88,000 Americans killed from infections, 32,000 Americans killed from surgery, 37,000 Americans killed by unnecessary medical procedures, and much more. See naturalnews.com for links to the original data. The bottom line total comes to 783,936 deaths every year from conventional medicine, that's drugs and surgery medicine. It means you are 6,200% more likely to be killed by your doctor than by a homicidal shooter. According to the CDC's numbers from 2007, the total number of homicide shooting deaths in the United States each year is about 12,600. This is from Death's final data for 2007 National Vital Statistics Report at the Centers for Disease Control. This means that your risk of being killed by your doctor is 62 times higher than the risk of being killed by a homicidal shooter. Put another way, that's a 6,200% higher risk. It seems that before we even think about the issue of gun control, we need a national debate on doctor control. After all, when doctors inadvertently kill people by prescribing deadly chemotherapy cocktails or deadly prescription drugs, they don't even get arrested for it. But they do get financial kickbacks, exotic vacations paid by the drug companies, free travel, free meals, and other perks of being a big pharma sellout. Plus, they're free to go on killing other people over and over again. While doctors obviously don't intend to kill people, they nonetheless keep doing so, as long as they get their bribes, kickbacks, and perks. If politicians really wanted to protect Americans from being killed, they'd call for restrictions on the prescribing of deadly pharmaceuticals. More important than gun control, what we really need now is doctor control, or big pharma control.
If you get your groceries from a place like this, then it's not food that you're eating. I would say that 98 to 99% of what you find in these places is not actually food, but synthetic chemicals or chemical and textural extracts processed and artificially flavoured and coloured to look like food. The rotting meat in the delicatessen section is bathed in carcinogenic sodium nitrate and potassium nitrate to preserve it, and treated with poisonous carbon monoxide to keep it red and fresh looking. Food is not our friend. The first myth that we need to dispel is that food goes inside our bodies and somehow becomes part of us. It doesn't. Food doesn't go inside us. I know. We eat an apple and the apple goes inside us, but it really doesn't. Consider the donut. Everywhere you look on the donut, you're looking at the outside of it. Even when you look down the hole in the middle, it's still the outside of the donut. Imagine stretching out that donut into a long tube. Even if you look down into the hole, you're still looking at the outside of the donut. Put a set of teeth on one end and a bottom hole at the other, then you have us. Food doesn't go inside us, it goes through us. Our intestinal lining is made up of modified skin cells, and our stomach is just a bulge in a tube. If you were to carefully measure what you eat and what comes out of you, you'll find that 99% of what you put in comes directly out again. A very tiny proportion is absorbed into the body, but it too is ejected after performing a stimulatory action. And this is what food actually does. It provides a type of stimulation that the body reacts to. Imagine if you were walking through a forest and you accidentally brush against some stinging nettles. A chemical reaction occurs on the skin's surface, but inside the body, all sorts of processes are stimulated into action. Increased blood flow to the area, white blood cells are produced. There's a histamine response, culminating in a painful, itchy welt under the skin. The stinging nettles didn't penetrate the skin or become part of it. It merely stimulated an internal reaction. When you eat, the chemical content of the food contacts the modified exterior skin cells and stimulates an internal reaction. And that reaction is provoked because the food is toxic to some degree, and the body responds in order to protect itself from it. Another common misconception is that food provides the body with energy. It doesn't. In fact, the opposite is true. Food drains the body of energy while providing none. Not only does it take energy to raise a response to the stimulation that food provides, but it takes up to 80% of the body's energy to digest or get rid of the food. I mean, how do you feel after having a big meal? Do you feel energized and bursting with energy? Or do you feel tired, lazy and lethargic? Most people feel the need to eat 3 square meals a day, which means they're running on 20% of their energy all day, which is barely enough to keep you walking around. And it's partly why we find it so difficult to recover from illness and injury. We simply don't have the energy. And as I said earlier, most of what we call food isn't actually food. See if you can guess what this man is making here. Yep, it's artificial lettuce from chemicals, and I'd bet that they are symptom-creating chemicals at that. So the best you can possibly do regarding food is to go as high up Hotema's list as you can and have as little food as possible. So that might take the form of 1 meal a day of mainly fresh, organic, juicy fruits and berries, and the occasional light leafy green salad, avoiding dense earthy root vegetables and salad dressings except coconut oil and perhaps lemon juice. So in effect, you're limiting the amount of work the body has to do reacting to and eliminating the food. But you can go one better and adopt a program of fasting into your routine by choosing 2 days out of the week, say a Monday and a Thursday, and not eating anything at all on those days. And once the body gets used to this routine, then fast for an entire week out of each month. Fasting is a very effective tool for repairing and maintaining the body. And quite simply, it works by freeing up the massive amounts of energy that the body would have used to digest food, so that it can be reallocated for repair and maintenance. When you fast, your body immediately makes use of the extra energy to start eliminating toxins from itself. So you will experience what are known as detox symptoms or a healing crisis. The toxins have to leave the body somehow. So you may notice bad breath, greasy hair, weakness, tiredness, aches and pains, or some ailment might seem to flare up. The medical profession will tell you that these symptoms are a problem and a danger sign that you're lacking nutrition or minerals or something. But this is a lie. Before your body can heal, it must eliminate all the toxins that are harming it. If you remember one thing from this presentation, remember that if you ever get sick, stop eating and rest. Allow your body the energy that it needs to accomplish its healing tasks. And now we come to urine therapy. This is a very difficult therapy for most people to get their heads around. It is a process of drinking one's own urine and also washing in it, as well as applying it in various other ways depending on the issue or ailment. Now, there are so many myths and taboos associated with this topic that people have a tendency to switch off at the mere mention of drinking one's own urine. So let's examine these myths. The first one is urine is a waste product. Well, no. Urine is actually the excess of the beneficial substances in the blood. The liver removes all toxins and pathogens from the blood. The kidneys receive the purified blood and regulates the amount of salts, vitamins, minerals, hormones, enzymes, amino acids and water in order to keep the blood in perfect balance, as having too much of something is just as bad as having not enough. And sometimes, while it is sitting in your bladder, your body might realize that it needs some of these life-giving substances and reabsorb it. Many have had the experience of wanting to go to the toilet and then getting distracted, and an hour or so later they realize they no longer need to go. That's because the body has reabsorbed enough of the urine and relieved the pressure on the bladder. Urine is a snapshot of everything the body needs in exactly the right proportions for you. It is also a holographic record of everything that's going on in the body right now. The medical term for urine is plasma ultrafiltrate. That is, ultra-filtered blood plasma. Your urine is literally your lifeblood. Amniotic fluid is also urine. Firstly, the mother's and then the baby's. And it's responsible for forming your lungs and your skin. It is most certainly not waste. Urine is dirty and smelly. Well, no again. Urine is one of the most sterile substances on earth. The pungent smell only occurs after it sits on an inorganic surface that's exposed to the air. Urine doesn't contain ammonia, but ammonia forms as a byproduct of its antibacterial properties. In fact, urine is actually a natural detergent, and it was what was used in Chinese laundries. The smell of urine is obviously affected by your diet, your current state of health, and even your emotional state, but it actually smells of you. It's usually dark and strong tasting in the beginning, particularly in the morning, but after a short period of detox, your urine becomes clear and sparkling. And after the body is completely detoxified, urine sometimes tastes of coconut water. If the body's getting rid of it, why put it back in? Well, as I explained earlier, it isn't getting rid of it because it's waste. It's dumping excess that it can't use at the moment. But the situation changes from moment to moment. And once urine is reabsorbed into the system, the body now doesn't have to expend lots of energy manufacturing any of these substances in the urine. So there is an almost immediate energy boost. Urine is antibiotic, analgesic, and an immune system booster. It contains growth hormones, minerals, vitamins, and endorphins which kill pain, lifts moods, and boosts energy. It is also packed with stem cells, which are prototype cells that can become anything: skin, bone, muscle, heart tissue, and literally they roam around looking for things to repair. Even the medical mafia and scientific priesthood are grudgingly accepting the power of stem cells, although they are nevertheless keen to hide where these stem cells come from and keep you dependent on their so-called expertise. Here, they acknowledge that these stem cells can regrow and repair organs, but imply that this process requires laboratory conditions and access to amniotic fluid, which, as I mentioned earlier, is urine. Don't be fooled. Your body has the inherent capability to repair itself and regrow damaged organs and even limbs without medical intervention, if you only allow it to do so. Why don't doctors prescribe it then? Well, because medicine is a racket. It's $1 trillion business. And if everybody knew how to heal themselves using urine therapy, then the medical profession and the pharmaceutical industry would disappear because they would become irrelevant overnight. And their corporate masters would have to find some other way to quietly depopulate the West. Here is a quote from a Dr. Alan Greenberg. As a retired physician, I can honestly say that unless you are in a serious accident, your best chance of living to a ripe old age is to avoid doctors and hospitals and learn about nutrition, herbal medicine and other forms of natural medicine, unless you are fortunate enough to have a naturopathic physician available. Almost all drugs are toxic and are designed only to treat symptoms and not to cure anyone. Vaccines are highly dangerous, have never been adequately studied or proven to be effective, and have a poor risk-reward ratio. Most surgery is unnecessary, and most textbooks of medicine are inaccurate and deceptive. Almost every disease is said to be idiopathic, without known cause, or genetic, although this is untrue. In short, our mainstream medical system is hopelessly inept and or corrupt. The treatment of cancer and degenerative diseases is a national scandal. The sooner you learn this, the better off you will be. In 1976, doctors went on strike in Los Angeles for 1 month, and the number of deaths fell by 18%. And during a similar doctor's strike in Israel in 1983, the mortality rate dropped by 50%. And you can bet as soon as they went back to work, the death rate went straight back to normal. What does that tell you? Death by doctor is so common that the term iatrogenic death has been coined for it. And it is either the biggest killer or the second biggest killer in the developed world, depending on whose numbers you use. Doctors will not prescribe urine because it's not sanctioned by the medical associations. And it never will be sanctioned because it works. I couldn't possibly drink my own urine. It's all a matter of perspective. Many people who feel that they couldn't bring themselves to drink their own urine will not hesitate to eat a highly processed non-food that might be delicious, but it should be remembered that your stomach does not have taste buds. And while your mouth has been seduced with flavours designed to be addictive, your stomach has been poisoned with sometimes hundreds of chemical additives. Drinking your own urine is 1,000,000 times better for you than any of these bizarre practices. I could never put wee on my skin. Well, if you've ever used a moisturiser, then chances are you already have. Urine is literally the only moisturiser, and in almost all lotions, moisturisers, hand and face creams, if you look at the list of ingredients, you're likely to find urea or uric acid or ure something to disguise the fact that you're using cow, pig or horse urine. But of course, your own is better for you. It is also well known that supermodels use urine on their faces to remain young looking. And as I mentioned earlier, you've already done urine therapy and had it on your skin when you were a baby swimming in the amniotic fluid. So, how do you perform urine therapy? In a clean glass, capture the first urination of the morning. The first one in the morning is important because while you slept, your body used all the energy you saved by resting to produce everything that it needed. So the morning urine will be the most nutritionally dense, for want of a better phrase. You capture it midstream, that is, you miss the first few teaspoons and the last few. Drink almost all of the captured urine within 15 minutes, keeping some aside for other uses. You can mix it with fruit juice or distilled water, or you can take a deep breath, hold it while you drink it all down in one go, and while you're still holding your breath, you drink a mouthful or two of distilled water or fruit juice, and then breathe out. Or you can just drink it down neat and stop being a pussy. So you use some of the saved urine to wash with. How you wash with it is that you pour a little in the palm of your hand, and then you massage it into the skin a section at a time until it absorbs. It's not like water. With water, you push it around the skin and eventually you'll have to towel it off. But your urine will be absorbed and will be dry within minutes, and it won't smell. You can also use it in an eye wash cup to soothe sore, tired or irritated eyes. And people have been known to throw away their glasses after using it in this way for some period of time. You can also put drops in your ears for earache and hearing problems. You can also gargle with it to soothe a sore throat. Or you can even snort it through your nostrils for colds or sinus problems. You drink again in the late afternoon or early evening. Not too late, because you'll notice that you get an energy boost within a few minutes of drinking it. And if you take it too late in the evening, and you're not used to it, then it will keep you up all night. Save any excess urine that you're not intending to drink in a dark glass bottle stopped with a wad of cotton wool so that it can breathe. And you store it in a cool, dark place. This is known as aged urine, and it's for external uses only. And the older it gets, the better. Drinking twice a day, I would suggest, is a good starting point, but you can actually drink as much as you like without any negative effects. In fact, the process that we call looping is drinking all the urine you produce, which acts very powerfully to cleanse the body. Similarly, a urine fast, which is a period where one eats no food and drinks only urine and distilled water, this combines the benefits of urine with the extra energy liberated by fasting. Urine can also be used internally in several other ways. It can be used homeopathically, such as if you get an allergic reaction, you wait 10 seconds after the first symptoms appear, collect some of the urine, and place 10 drops under your tongue, and hold it there for as long as possible. The symptoms should disappear within 10 minutes, and if not, you just repeat hourly until it does. You can also prepare a homeopathic solution by putting 1 drop of urine in 5 milliliters of distilled water. You shake it or succuss it 50 times, and then you take 1 drop of that solution and put it in another 5 milliliters of distilled water, shake 50 times, and you put 1 drop of that in 5 milliliters of high-proof vodka as a preservative, and voila, you have a homeopathic solution. Externally, urine can be used as a foot bath. A good deal of toxins are eliminated through the feet, so urine foot baths can sometimes dramatically aid the cleansing process. Another very powerful external use is known as a urine pack, and it is very useful for healing many things, including cuts from little nicks and paper cuts to deep lacerations, which we might imagine would need stitches. They will heal within 3 days without scars or scar tissue. Burns, all the way to serious third-degree burns, a urine pack will heal such a burn in 3 days and again won't leave a scar. Aches, pains and inflammation, well, aches and pains will usually disappear immediately, and inflammation goes down within minutes. Sores and rashes begin to heal almost immediately, and splinters that are normally inaccessible are ejected by the body with the help of a urine pack within a couple of days. Snake, animal and insect bites and stings are also relieved instantly, and any ensuing allergic reaction can be avoided by combining the urine pack with the 10 drops under the tongue method. So to use a urine pack, you simply soak a dressing, cotton wool pad, or even a clean rag in urine, place it on the site of the injury, and wrap it in place using cling film to prevent leaks. You keep it on there as long as possible and keep it moist with additional applications of urine. Simple as that. The final aspect of this holistic body-centric approach is understanding and utilizing the connection between the mind and body. The mind has complete control over every aspect of the body. Right now, whether you know it or not, part of your mind is controlling the beating of your heart, the growing of your hair, the operation of your thyroid gland. You just don't know how you're doing it. In fact, there are a lot of things that we just don't know how we do. How do you move your hand to catch a ball? You just think about it and it happens. But sometimes you don't even have to think about it. 99% of what we do occurs at the level below the conscious. Every so-called disease begins as a thought pattern. Every type of thought pattern causes a cascade of a particular mix of chemicals, hormones, enzymes, and other substances. But we experience this chemical release as an emotion. So the chemicals that are coursing through your body when you're scared are very different from those that are released when you feel happiness. This chemical release is an emergency response to the thought pattern in order to prepare your body for the consequences of that thought pattern. If you're crossing the road and halfway across you drop some of the items you're carrying, and as you pick them up you notice the lights change. And even though you don't know if a car is coming, your mind will interpret the changing signal and your current predicament, and the thought pattern will be that you are in immediate danger. The chemicals will be released that will prepare your body to escape the danger. The blood will be drawn from your core and distributed to your limbs. Your energy-hungry immune system is shut down, and the energy is redirected to your muscles. Your higher brain function is shut down so that you will act more quickly on instinct. But this is an emergency response, and the imbalances and chemicals are only meant to be experienced for short periods. We feel the emotion, deal with the situation, and the chemicals subside and the body returns to normal. But in our culture, we have mental programming that puts us in chronic and deep-seated emotional states, and this is the trigger for most so-called disease. One of the best examples of the body-mind connection is the placebo effect. Most people have heard of this. If you believe that a sugar pill will heal you, then it will heal you. But what most people don't know is that the effect is even more powerful if the doctor administering the placebo is also convinced that the sugar pill is effective. So there's a measurable third-party effect. Also, the reverse is true. It's called the nocebo effect. If a doctor tells you that you're going to die in 3 months and you believe him, then you'd better get your affairs in order because your body will find a way to make it happen. This is why the number of deaths from smoking-related diseases rose sharply after warnings started appearing on cigarette packets. Doctors always seem to want to use the nocebo effect. They almost always give you bad news, and when they do, they make sure that they describe these abstract processes so that you can visualize them and make them real. Or they will use the third-party effect I described earlier and call in your family and friends and explain and convince them that you're about to die and use them to heighten the nocebo effect on you.
Food. ASC got produce. ASC about to go cool. We gon' grow food. ASC got produce. ASC about to go cool. Whipping in the kitchen, whipping in the kitchen. I be whipping in the kitchen, whipping in the kitchen. Chop it up, chop it, chop it, chop it, chop it up. The slow food got you sloppy, bruh. So chop it, chop it, chop it, chop it up. Go food, go food, chop it up, chop it, chop it, chop it, chop it up. The slow food got you sloppy, bruh. So chop it, chop chop it, chop it, chop it
See,
up.
in my hood, there ain't really much to eat. Popeyes on the corner, McDonald's right across the street. All this talk about guns and the drugs, pretty serious. But look at what they feeding y'all, that's what's really killing us. Please change the food in my school, make it good. Get that fake food up out of my hood. Hope the message not misunderstood. Grow and cook your own food, yes you could. Got the little homies in the garden, got the big homies selling collard greens in the north side. Ain't starving since community cooks been on the scene.
Screaming hot Cheetos and Takis, boy, you better eat your broccoli. Fake food is kinda lame, putting poison in your brain. Need more people at the club, popping bottles of that water, dabbing on that fast food. Pulling veggies out the garden, I go hard, I eat good, and I put that on my mama. Eating healthy school lunch, and that's word to Miss Obama. Drinking water, living longer, no processed drama. Call me John Deere, shawty, I be growing like a farmer. Dad.
Go food.